Today we're looking at these two parts that make up what's sort of a console on Triumph TR4. Up high, there's what I'll call the radio plate, where you can buy it with a hole cut in it for a radio or not. This part is reproduced today. And then what I'll call the wishbone, this aluminum piece, which straddles the tunnel and is bolted actually to the frame beneath the floor. And if you don't have this part, I know a lot of cars are missing them, but I installed it on the blue TR4, my stock TR4, and it made a big difference in the amount of shaking of the dash and the general feeling of rigidity in the body. So it's not just a cosmetic item. I think it's an important part of the car's structure. And unfortunately, probably the first time a lot of cars got a clutch job, mechanics likely threw these away thinking they were doing the customer a favor. So a lot of them are gone. But I found one for this car and knew that the dash had sagged down maybe an inch over time, and it was going to be difficult to get these parts installed. But by putting a bottle jack on both sides, I was able to raise up the dash, get the wishbone installed and the radio plate installed, and tighten the bolts. Now after this video, I'll loosen the bottle jacks and hope that the wishbone doesn't break from the weight of the dash. I got the blue bottle jack in as close to the center as I could, but the red one, that gauge panel, the gauge on the right is a metal hard line. I didn't want to deal with taking that apart, so I put the red bottle jack a little bit outboard of where it otherwise could have gone, but it seemed to help. Anyway, if you can guess what drive oil pressure is connected to, I'll think of some kind of a prize to award you. Anyway, if you're missing this wishbone and radio plate on your TR4, I strongly recommend you find one. And to make it even more complicated, there's two different ones. There's what I believe is an early one, like this one, which is wrinkle paint, and it's a little narrower from here to here by only about a 1/4 inch, but that's enough to make it not fit. Interestingly, somebody sawed the top of this one off, perhaps frustrated that their dash had sagged down and it would no longer fit. The later one we see here came with a vinyl cover. It was not painted, and the shape is a little different. Notice the proportion at the top. This is clearing a taller tunnel. There's more material here. This tunnel isn't as tall, so that must have been some kind of a running change. But why in the world they changed the width and by such a small amount, very hard to guess why that was done. And if you look, like in the Moss catalog, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they show a serial number where they changed from the early one to the late one, and I believe that serial number is this very car, which I've always found to be kind of trippy. So again, in conclusion, if you don't have this part on your TR4, I recommend you track one down, and if you have to, you can get under the dash with some bottle jacks, raise it up, get that part installed, and enjoy a much more rigid dash with less shaking. Thanks, and be sure and watch my other videos.